Salzer, and I'm a marketing manager here at Lindblad Expeditions for National Geographic Orion. Just a couple things before we get started. If at any point you lose your connection to the video, just go back to the email and re-enter the webinar through the link that was provided. And on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a box where you can type in your questions. And we definitely encourage you to type them in throughout the presentation, and we will answer them at the end. And I apologize ahead of time if we can't get to every single one. We will provide an email address at the end where you can send anything that was not answered. And as promised, we are offering a $100 bonus commission exclusively for travel consultants attending this webinar. And we'll cover the details of that at the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. We have over 50 years of expedition travel experience all around the world, and our founder, who you see here, Lars Erik Lindblad, he was actually the first to bring lay travelers to Antarctica and the Galapagos, and also the first to lead expeditions to Indonesia, Easter Island, and the South Pacific. Today, we're led by his son, Sven Olaf Lindblad, and really proud to carry on the traditions of his father, which has always included a strong commitment to environmentally responsible tourism from the beginning. And just last year, the third generation, who you also see pictured here with Sven, Jeremy Lindblad, assumed a directorship in our Sydney office as Business Development Director for Australia. So you may be wondering who the Lindblad guest is. Lindblad National Geographic guest. It's people who are interested in photography, wildlife, birders, people interested in conservation, history, archaeology, people interested in the undersea, snorkelers, scuba divers, as well as multi-generational families, and learning, and in some cases, too, traditional cruisers who are seeking more. In 2004, Lindblad entered into a strategic partnership with National Geographic. It was a really natural alliance on many levels. Both organizations care deeply about exploration, discovery, conservation, and inspiring guests to explore and care about the planet. And the partnership offers unparalleled benefits to guests. It's really the only way to travel with National Geographic photographers and explorers. As a result of our alliance with National Geographic, we have an exclusive expedition photography program. We have a National Geographic photographer on every NG Orion voyage, plus a Lindblad Expeditions National Geographic certified photo instructor. So this gives your clients access to instruction and tips from the best photographers with a chance to take home photo skills that will last their lifetime. And our staff, I really can't say enough about the staff. They truly make the experience. We have the most knowledgeable expedition team in the South Pacific, and every voyage sails with 6 naturalists, an undersea specialist, dive masters, a photo team, video chronicler, and a wellness specialist. So for your clients, this means more learning, more personal attention. And one guest, I think, summed it up the best when she said, if I could remember everything they taught me, I'd have another year of college under my belt. And speaking of staff, I'm thrilled today to be joined by expedition leader Tim Soper. He has 20 years of experience as an expedition leader, dive master, and Zodiac driver. His lifelong passion for the sea led him to study at the University of Wales Marine Laboratories, where he combined oceanography and marine biology for an honors degree in ocean sciences. And he's led expeditions all over the world, including many in the South Pacific, and has also spent a lot of time on the NG Orion as the expedition leader aboard her inaugural voyages, and he'll also be on board this fall as the EL. Hi, Tim, and welcome.
Hello, Darlene. Hello, everyone.
All right, well, now I'll turn it over to you, Tim, to talk through the ship and our itineraries here.
Okay, well, thanks very much, and hello, everyone. Sorry if I sound a bit stuffy. I'm just back to the UK, and it's hay fever season here, so I'm a bit bunged up, but hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, so as Darlene said, I was involved in the planning of the National Geographic Orion's inaugural season, and I'm the expedition leader on board. Just came back from leading the first 3 voyages of this amazing new ship, and we had a really great time. This is a picture taken on those inaugural voyages. You can see the new paint job, the yellow line, and actually in that Zodiac you can see Jeremy Lindblad, who joined us for our inaugural voyages. So she's a really wonderful ship, perfect blend of being very comfortable and very capable expedition ship. So she can get some really wonderful wild places in great. The The ship is luxurious. She's a small ship, only taking about 100 guests at any one time, but she's very, very comfortable. As you can see, she's a modern design. She's also purpose-built as an expedition ship, which is great. It means that she's really very well set up for expedition operations. That means there's lots of deck space, and you can see really nice sun deck here, right up on the top of the ship, a great place to relax in the sun or watch the sunset. And also we have actually a hot tub that you can see in the background there, a little jacuzzi. But yeah, a lovely ship, great access to the outside, which is really what it's all about on board. She's very comfortable inside as well. We have a lounge, which should appear on the next slide, which is really the hub of all activities on board during the day and the evening. This, by day, is a little bistro cafe where you can go in the morning to get a freshly made cappuccino, and then it's the place where all of our lectures happen, so presentations from the team on the screen in the lounge. And then in the evening it becomes the bar where we have our cocktail hour and drinks before dinner, but a really important part of life on board. And also the lounge has great access to the outside. Up on deck again, there you can see the jacuzzi. In the warm places, it's a cool tub, place to cool off. And in the cold climates, such as the Antarctic, it becomes a hot tub where you can sit and warm up out on deck. Another part of having a comfortable time on board is, of course, the wonderful food. And the National Geographic Orion is really the prime vessel of the Lindblad National Geographic fleet in terms of her cuisine. And that's because we have a consultant chef, Serge Dansereau. Is actually a very famous Australian chef. He has an amazing restaurant called the Bathers Pavilion, which is right on the beach just outside Sydney. So he's very well known in Australia, and he works as a consultant chef to put together some really special menus, and this proves to be a really great highlight of time on board. Actually, at the beginning of the season of the National Geographic Orion, during our time in autumn when we were just getting the ship ready to sail on the inaugural voyage, Serge was on board for a few days training the galley, the chefs on some of his dishes, and he needed some guinea pigs to try the food. So we were invited in at lunchtime. You know, we'd been out on deck setting up Zodiacs and kayaks and things, and we were invited in at lunchtime to sit down for 5 courses of tasting menu with a little introduction from Serge himself. So it was very nice to be the guinea pig for that. But Serge doesn't sail on board all the time. He sets up the menus, and then the ship's very capable galley crew cook the meals each day. But you can see a typical menu there in the evening, quite a large selection. As you can see on the left side, there's a variety of courses designed by Serge, and those are designed that you can have all of them or you can pick and choose. And then on the right side, there are some alternative choices. So you can see it's a lot of selection each day on the menu for the meals. Lunch and breakfast are served typically outside in the tropics. Certainly in the South Pacific we're eating outside a lot of the time because we have this beautiful outdoor cafe just after the lounge. It's a great area to go and have breakfast out on deck, see the views as we approach wherever we're going that day. And then also we sometimes have deck dinners outside, special barbecues, and hosted tables with some of the National Geographic guest lecturers. So outdoor dining is certainly a part of life on board. All of the meals are single seating, and all of the tables are open so people can really mingle as they choose. Dinner each night is served in the restaurant, which is down below. So this is where we eat when either it's too cold outside or maybe it's raining, then we need to eat inside. But normally it's only dinner if we're in the tropics that we eat in the restaurant. But this is a lovely, lovely space. Again, one seating, lots of tables so people can choose who they eat with. And it's all served in open seating, and people can come and go as they please from dinner. Keeping fit on board after all that food, of course, we are out doing active things most days, but people also like to work out in the gym, so we have a small fitness center on board, some cardio equipment, some weights, and also a great view out to sea. As you can see, you can really watch what's going on outside as you're working out. And as part of the fitness center, there's also a massage room, so you can have spa treatments from our wellness specialist on board, who also leads a stretch class each day. Just around sunrise, we gather on deck, and she leads a morning stretch. And there's also a sauna on board. So lots of ways to enjoy relaxing on board as well as the expedition activities. Of course, the ship is nothing without the crew, and the National Geographic Orion has been working as an expedition ship for several years before becoming the National Geographic Orion. So she's got a crew that are very experienced in expedition operations, the great ratio on board, half as many crew as there are guests on board, and very, very attentive hotel team looking after us or the guests all day. So it's a very nice atmosphere on board, great friendly Filipino crew, predominantly Filipino crew. And one of the special things about an expedition ship is that we actually have access to the bridge. This means that guests can come up to the bridge pretty much any time and meet the navigators, enjoy the best view of any room on the ship, chat to the captain, and watch as an expedition ship goes about doing the special things that we do, such as when we get down to the Antarctic, working through the ice, approaching new islands. It's really, really an exciting place to be. As far as the accommodations on board go, as I said, purpose-built as an expedition ship and quite a modern vessel, so the cabins are very nice. All of them have great views to the outside. Some have balconies that you can open the doors and get your own little bit of private deck, but all of them have these large windows and good outside views, and the beds can be configured as double beds or as twin beds, so you can choose how the bed's set up, and there's a range of categories, but all very, very comfortable accommodations. So with a small number of people, comfortable accommodation on board, and a very capable expedition platform, the National Geographic Orion really is a great ship for exploration. We found we had a really successful time during these first 3 voyages, and I'm looking forward to getting back out and continuing our exploration of the South Pacific. One of the special things again about Lindblad National Geographic is that we have the Undersea Program on board, and this means that there's an undersea specialist on the team of expedition guides. This is somebody who goes diving either with the guests or on his own, and takes video which is shared with everybody as part of our evening recap session. So it's a chance for even those that don't dive and don't snorkel to get a glimpse of the underwater world. We also have snorkel gear for all of the guests, which we lend to people at the beginning of the voyage. They can borrow it for the duration. And we also offer scuba diving aboard the National Geographic Orion. Obviously, some of the places we're going to are really prime dive destinations, so people are keen to get a little deeper than they could on snorkel. So if you're a certified scuba diver, you can come diving aboard the Orion as we cross the Pacific. Another great tool for exploration is the ROV. This is a little robot submarine which can dive much deeper than you could on scuba, and we deploy that from a Zodiac, and again it takes video which is sent back to the ship so that we can view it on board. Other tools for the underwater specialist include the hydrophone, which allows us to listen to whale calls underwater, and so that everyone can enjoy the underwater, we have the glass bottom boat, which is great. So it's actually a Zodiac with the bottom cut out and a glass section so that we can enjoy looking at the reef from the comfort of the Zodiacs. More tools for exploration include the kayaks. That's a really nice way to get out and explore quietly and at your own pace. We have 24 double kayaks on board, also a video microscope, so quite often we do plankton tows and look at what we find under the microscope, and that's actually fed onto the big screens in the lounge so that everybody can watch that at once. We also have a camera up in the crow's nest so that you can see what's going on ahead of the ship from the comfort of your cabin on the TV. So looking ahead to the voyages we have coming up, or the ones we're going to talk about today, we have a series of really wonderful voyages through Indonesia and Melanesia and the South Pacific islands of Polynesia all the way to Easter Island. And the first one we're going to talk about is a voyage which takes us from Fiji to Tahiti. So leaving from Fiji, we work our way through the islands, going to Tonga, Samoa, the northern Cook Islands, very remote islands far away from the islands that are normally visited in the Cook Islands, and then right up to Kiribati and the Line Islands. And this is perhaps the highlight of the whole expedition. This is a really very difficult place to get to. These are the uninhabited southern Line Islands, and I'll talk about those in just a moment. And then we come down into French Polynesia and end the voyage in Tahiti. So, as I said, one of the highlights of this expedition is getting to the southern Line Islands, and these are uninhabited, very hard to get to. You know, there's nobody there, no airstrips, just have to go by ship. And this is a place that National Geographic have identified, and one of their researchers, a chap called Enrique Sala, who's actually going to be on board, he identified this as one of the most unspoilt reef systems in the world. So really an exciting place to go snorkeling and scuba diving. And we'll be visiting that island, Millennium Atoll, as well as some of the other southern Line Islands. All through this voyage, we'll have great underwater experiences. It really is a trip that's going to attract those keen snorkelers and keen scuba divers, because obviously all the way from Fiji and through the islands to French Polynesia, we'll have great reefs and wonderful opportunities to get underwater. An exciting place that we're going to visit on this trip, obviously there's lots of highlights, but just to name a few of them, is when we get to Vavau, northern Tonga. This is an area of wonderful limestone caves, so we'll have some time to explore those using the Zodiacs. Also great secret beaches and great snorkeling. And it's also a place that humpback whales come to calf and nurse the calves. So we may still see some humpback whales close to shore at that time of year. It's one of the few places in the world you can sometimes actually swim with humpback whales, so it's really, really exciting. Ashore in Fiji, Taveuni, known as the Garden Island, and Fiji obviously is a popular place for tourism, but being on an expedition ship, we can actually get away from the crowds and do some really wonderful hiking in some of the less frequently visited areas. All of these South Pacific voyages are exciting, particularly for birders, those that like the wildlife. There's some really special opportunities by visiting these remote islands to see what are known as endemic. So these are birds that are only found on that particular island or in small areas. And there's a whole series of different endemic birds that the birders will be keen to see. And we have an ornithologist as one of the guides on board the team. So as part of the team, so we'll be helping the keen birders find the birds they want to see. Something else we may see as we make our way through the Pacific Islands are, of course, the black pearls, quite famous in French Polynesia and also in the Cook Islands. These are farmed in the lagoons and produce these wonderful black pearls, which South Pacific is famous. We'll certainly make sure we have a chance to visit a pearl farm and see the pearls being cultivated and how they're extracted from the oysters. We'll also visit the people, as well as the wildlife and the scenery and the underwater. A big part of these voyages is seeing the local way of life. And again, we try to stay away from the frequently visited areas and visit the remote islands so that we can see a more authentic cultural experience. And it's really exciting that sometimes we get to islands and villages that have never had a visit before, and we become the attraction rather than the other way around. On this voyage, we're being joined by a National Geographic photographer. In fact, all of the voyages aboard the National Geographic Orion have a National Geographic photographer on board. And I'm excited that we're going to have Flip Nicklin on board for this trip. He's perhaps the most famous whale photographer in the world. He really pioneered underwater photography with whales. He works in Alaska and in Hawaii, so he's a great person to have on board for the Pacific. And yeah, Flip Nicklin, he started working for Geographic in the 70s and has been very, very widely published. But he's an amazingly humble person, and one of the great things about traveling aboard the National Geographic Orion is we have these very famous National Geographic photographers on board, and yet they're sitting there in the lounge, with the guests, helping them work their little point-and-shoot camera. And we had actually an interesting little session. We have workshops, photo workshops on board, and we had David Dublé with us on one of the earlier voyages, and he's perhaps the most famous underwater photographer in the world. And he just popped a memory card straight out of his camera without editing it. And as part of the workshop, he just worked through the pictures he had taken so that we could see that even National Geographic photographers take bad shots sometimes. So it was really, really a good learning experience for the guests. So moving on to the next voyage we're going to speak about, and that's the crossing from the Society Islands, French Polynesia, starting in Tahiti, making our way east all through French Polynesia, pretty much the entire width of French Polynesia, then into the Pitcairn group, which of course is Pitcairn Island and its surrounding islands, very special place to visit, and then ending in Easter Island. So a really remarkable voyage covering a lot of ground and visiting some very, very hard to reach islands. Lots and lots of highlights along the way. So starting at the end of the voyage, actually, one of the big highlights is Easter Island itself. And when we finish the voyage, the group will disembark and have several days to explore Easter Island. And we do this in the company of very experienced archaeologists, actually some of the archaeologists that excavated these very sites. So there'll be some days to see the archaeology of Easter Island and also just enjoy this beautiful wild island before continuing on to mainland Chile. All the way through Polynesia, when we come ashore, we're met by the very friendly locals, and traditional thing to have a little dance when we come ashore to an island. We have a little a dance, and these are really great experiences where we have the locals getting dressed up and performing for us as we come ashore. In the Pitcairn group, we'll visit hopefully 3 islands, Henderson, Ducie, and Pitcairn itself. Pitcairn, of course, the home of the Bounty mutineers' descendants. Very interesting cultural experience. But the other islands of the group, Henderson and Ducie, are uninhabited and really wonderful wild islands. Some very special birding to be done on Henderson, and all along absolutely wonderful snorkeling and diving. So hopefully we'll have 3 great days in the Pitcairn group. As I said, snorkeling and diving all through the voyage will be fantastic. There's lots of beautiful islands and great visibility in these open ocean reefs. And as I said, we'll be visiting Pitcairn Island, where the descendants of the Bounty live today. The Pitcairn group was one of the islands also selected for this Pristine Seas project, as being so remote, very few people come here to fish and degrade the environment. So Enrique Sala studied the islands in depth and found that they were really very, very intact underwater ecosystems, and we'll of course have time to explore those using the glass bottom boat, scuba diving, and snorkeling. At the very beginning of our voyage, when we sail from Tahiti, we'll be sailing out into the Society Islands, and we'll of course go to Bora, even though it's well and truly on the tourist trail. No visit to French Polynesia would be complete without a visit to Bora. So we'll have a day here, and of course, being aboard an expedition ship rather than staying in a resort in an overwater bungalow somewhere, we'll have the freedom to really explore this beautiful lagoon and visit some of the smaller islands. We can land on some of the motus just offshore from the main island and get this beautiful view back to the mountains of Bora. So on this voyage, as I said, we have a National Geographic photographer on each voyage. This time we're joined by Chris Rainier, and we try to select a relevant photographer for each voyage, which works really well actually, because Chris is more focused on the human photography. He's done an amazing project documenting different ethnic groups and their tattoos and markings and jewelry. So he's a really interesting guy to have on board, and he's also a great teacher. So it'd be great to sail with Chris again on this voyage. The next expedition we're going to talk about is our Indonesian Odyssey, and this is a trip which takes us from Bali, so we're moving out of the Pacific and into Indonesia, takes us from Bali all the way through Indonesia to New Guinea and then on to Australia, making our way down the Great Barrier Reef. Another very different region, but very exciting place to explore. Obviously, Bali is a well-known destination, but we'll see a great transition as we make our way through the islands. We move away from Bali and the more developed islands, hopping our way through the Indonesian islands, making our way into the Banda Sea and the Moluccas, very exciting area, and then on to New Guinea itself, through the Torres Strait and down to Australia. This slide shows a picture of what it's like actually in the Asmat. This is in Indonesia and New Guinea, West Papua. And this is a big river system where we can actually, on a high tide, we can get the ship right into the river and then go off and explore in the Zodiacs. And this is something that actually happens. You know, the villagers come out in the canoes to greet us. It's a really very special cultural experience. First time I had this happen to me, I didn't actually know it was going to happen. It was kind of intimidating driving a Zodiac in and all these canoes coming down the river towards us. But as you can imagine, great photo opportunities. And this is a fascinating culture that actually has developed without any stone because it's a big river system. There's no stones at all, so it's all wood and shells. So everything they have, all the cutting tools are made of shells, and everything's built out of wood. So fascinating people to visit, and also really very famous for their artworks and carvings, which are actually sold all over the world. So great chances to buy souvenirs. And here's an Asmat tribesman of the type that will be visited by or visiting. Further west in Indonesia, we'll see, you know, as I said, the changes in the people as we make our way between the islands. Big variations. So we'll move from the more Asian islands to the more Aboriginal islands and Melanesian islands as we make our way through Indonesia. Here you can see Alor Island further west and the beautiful ikat weavings, and another great souvenir to buy, these lovely cloths that are made on traditional looms. Another highlight of this voyage is visiting Komodo Island, and Komodo Island is of course famous for its dragons. They're the largest known lizards. These things can be 10 feet long, which is kind of intimidating when they come running towards you, and they can run really fast. So Komodo Island's now protected there. It's a reserve, and we take the Zodiacs ashore there, and with the local rangers we hope to catch a glimpse of the Komodo dragons. Really a very special thing to see. And also Komodo Island's very famous for its underwater life. It's a world-class dive destination that has one of the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the world, a place called Pink Beach, which has a sort of pink-red hue. So we'll also try and make a landing on that for some great snorkeling. And it's a common theme on all these voyages, of course, the underwater world and the great underwater experiences we're going to have. It really is a very important part of all of these itineraries, because there really isn't a bad spot along the whole way for diving, snorkeling, perhaps with the exception of a couple of places near the big rivers. But so we'll be diving at every opportunity, and the great thing is we're able to mix up the activities so that we have lots of time ashore and lots of time out on the water, giving something for everyone. Joining us on this voyage, we have a guest lecturer, a global perspectives speaker. This is a chap called Lawrence Blair, and he became famous, him and his brother Lorne, who sadly passed away. But these two really pioneered exploring Indonesia. They made their way through the islands with a film camera and made an amazing series called Ring of Fire, which was immensely popular. And it was a time when Indonesia was very much less visited than it is today. So they really captured some of the most remote islands in this film. And he'll be on board. We'll no doubt show the film, and he'll be giving us some lectures and sharing his insight of the region. We also have a National Geographic photographer on board, and that's Mark Thiessen. He's a photojournalist. He's photographed for many of the magazines, National Geographic itself and other magazines including Adventure and Traveller. And he's a photojournalist and specializes in photographing people as well as the natural world. So he'll be a great addition to the team for this particular voyage. The next voyage we're going to talk about is a voyage which takes us from Australia, sailing from Cairns up into Papua New Guinea, through the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and then ends in Fiji. And this is a slightly shorter voyage, and really is a great opportunity to sample each of these different island groups and countries. So it really hits the highlights of all these regions. These are all areas that we, on other itineraries, spend longer exploring in greater depth. But this is a chance to sample all of them in a relatively short voyage and hits all of the highlights in one go. So it's a really, really nice itinerary. So we'll be sailing from Cairns, as I said, making our way across to PNG, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and then on to Fiji. This is a picture taken in Vanuatu. This is a place called Lelepa, an island just quite near to Port Vila, but it's a really special place where we can visit this huge ash cave. It's a volcanic cave, and it's right near the beach on one of the harder to land spots around the coast, so you need Zodiacs to get there, and then we can hike up and visit this cave, and actually in that cave there are these ancient rock art, so handprints and things left by people many years ago. So that's one of the highlights in Vanuatu. Just around the corner is beautiful snorkeling and beautiful beaches, and we're actually met by an anthropologist who's worked there who explains to us about the people of the island and the history of this cave. In the Solomon Islands, a spot called Santa Ana. Another beautiful island, and it's, as I said, a lot of the islands have different dances. They're all slightly different. The Mudmen dance of Santa Ana is particularly interesting because the villagers dress up in these costumes. Some of them paint themselves this reddy brown color, and others paint themselves black. And this is a dance where these mudmen sneak out of the bushes. The reddy colored mudmen sneak out of the bushes and sort of chase around the dark people. And this is an interpretation of the interaction between the Polynesian people, the lighter skinned Polynesians, and the darker skinned Melanesians. And this is something, of course, that really happens because as we make our way on this voyage, we're on the line between Melanesia and Polynesia, the two regions, very different ethnicity, and the interactions between the two we'll see on the islands, and makes some really interesting people and cultures. The Solomon Islands were important theatre during World War II. Indeed, so was PNG and Vanuatu, and along the way, as well as beautiful reefs, we'll see wrecks above and below the waves. There'll be some World War II history ashore, but also some chances to dive on some of the wonderful World War II wrecks along the way. Airplane wrecks and also large ships as well. In Fiji, one of the highlights is the chance to see the firewalkers of Fiji. And firewalking is something you'll see in the resorts if you go and stay in Fiji, and these are people brought in from the outer islands to perform in that hotel environment. But we like to do it a little bit differently. We take the ship to the outer islands, and we actually go and land by Zodiac in this little village, which is where the firewalkers come from. And it's really special. We did this a few years ago when we were here last, and the chance to actually go into this village where nobody goes. I mean, they were super excited about us visiting their village and being able to show off this firewalking. And it's fascinating to see it, you know, away from the lights and the controlled environment of a resort. You see them building this massive fire, and you see them walking across these really, really hot rocks. And I have no idea how they do it, but it was a really interesting experience. In Papua New Guinea, of course, great cultural experiences as well. This really is a voyage to sample many different cultures as we hop between the islands and hitting all the high points really for the culture. So Papua New Guinea, really great big dances we get in New Guinea and the islands offshore, because the whole village turns out it could be a couple of hundred people dancing for us, all the kids out of school dressed up, and all the different groups and ages of people putting on a wonderful reception for us. As always, we want to learn about the area we're in, as well as just going out and experiencing it and taking photographs. So we have a guest lecturer on board this voyage as well, and this is somebody who actually grew up in Australia but then married a Papua New Guinean and lived there, where she became a politician. So she's a lady politician from Australia who lived in New Guinea. So as you can imagine, she has a pretty unique insight into the way of life in New Guinea. And she's actually been awarded an OBE for her work. And she's going to be joining us as a guest lecturer on this voyage. That's Dame Carol Kidu. And as previously mentioned, we have the National Geographic photographer, of course, on board, giving photo workshops and tuition, and also sharing their stories of their travels. And that's going to be Chris Rainier again on this voyage, someone who we spoke about before. And he, as I said, takes these amazing pictures of people. So I'm really excited to see what he gets as we have a really excellent cultural experiences planned for this voyage. One of the nice things about the National Geographic photographers actually is that after the voyage they share the pictures they've taken with the group. So that's really nice for people to have a few pictures taken by a National Geographic photographer when they go home. So I hope that gives you some insight into those voyages. I think we've come to the end of my section. I'm going to hand back to Darlene, but of course if there are any questions, just let us know.
Thank you so much, Tim. That was a great overview and a lot of great detail about what guests will see on those voyages. Just want to touch base on our voyages. So they are an excellent value, and your client's expedition includes pretty much everything. It's accommodations, all meals, non-alcoholic beverages, plus cappuccinos, lattes, and a complimentary refillable water bottle, plus 24-hour coffee, tea, and soda. All activities, shore excursions, and all Zodiac and kayak excursions. Snorkeling with wetsuits, masks, and fins, so your clients don't have to pack that and have it take up a lot of room in their suitcase. And same for the scuba divers. There is gear on board for them as well. The use of sauna, whirlpool hot tub, the fitness center, and the morning stretch classes that Tim had mentioned with the wellness specialist. The services of the expedition team, so that includes a full schedule of talks and presentations, different photo sessions that Tim had mentioned throughout the whole voyage, as well as port charges and taxes, and ground transfers to and from group flights, and also complete pre-journey info, so that includes what to pack and a reading list as well. And we do have a couple of important notes for scuba divers. We have scuba diving requirements that our scuba divers have to be certified by an internationally recognized dive association, such as PADI, and their certification cards and logbooks must be shown on board. Divers also must have logged 25 dives in total and must have made a dive within 12 months preceding the voyage. So it is for experienced divers and not, first time or more resort type divers. And there is also a scuba diving surcharge. It includes scuba diving equipment and the guidance of a certified dive master. And here's a look at the distinguishing features that we offer guests. We have the finest South Pacific expedition team to guide your clients. Our photo team, the National Geographic photographer and Lidblad National Geographic certified photo instructor on every single voyage. In addition, our Undersea Program Tim had talked about with snorkeling, scuba diving, the glass bottom boat, the remotely operated vehicle, and the undersea specialists and dive masters, making it all happen. In addition, other tools for exploration, the Zodiacs, kayaks, and more that really make the experience especially rich. As the pioneers of expedition travel, and with over 50 years experience, we really know it better than anyone. Flexibility and choice are definite hallmark of our expeditions. So we're always looking to maximize the best experience for our guests. The delicious cuisine that Tim had talked about and outstanding accommodations. The video chronicler who's aboard to record your client's experience. And our commitment to conservation ensures that their visit will be a force of good in the region as well. And here's a look at the special offers that we have. The first is a $1,000 air credit, and that applies to 2 voyages that Tim talked about. When you book by July 31, it's on exploring the Coral Sea, Papua New Guinea to Fiji, as well as Reefs, Lagoons, and Volcanic Isles from Fiji to Tahiti. And that's valid on new bookings only, not combinable with other offers. And we definitely encourage you to call us for details on that, more detail on that. We have our back-to-back savings. So for any guests who take consecutive journeys, there is a 10% offer there. Bringing a group. So for parties of 8 people or more, every guest receives 5% off the cost of the expedition. And bringing the kids. We definitely believe sharing an expedition with children or grandkids is a life-enhancing experience. So we offer $500 off the double occupancy rate for every guest under the age of 18. And we have we offer a number of sales tools at expeditions.com/agent. So you can easily log in here, request and track reservations, find marketing tools such as brochures, sales sheets, and a media library, and see the latest offers. And there's also expedition educational materials there, including our webinars on our destination. And as promised, we are offering a $100 bonus commission on your next South Pacific 2014 booking. And that is exclusively for travel agents attending this webinar. So to redeem it, call us with your booking at 1-800-EXPEDITION and mention that you attended this webinar. We also encourage you to call us to request bookings at that number, 1-800-EXPEDITION. Our expedition specialists are extremely knowledgeable, and the hours that we're open are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. also Eastern Time. So that brings us to the end of the presentation, and I see some questions coming in, so thank you for everyone who's asking them. We're going to go ahead and address some of them. And if you have a question now and you haven't asked it, please feel free to go ahead and type it in the little question box on the right-hand side of your screen. So Tim, are you still there? Do we still have you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. So someone
Hello?
asked.
Yes.
Someone asked if we offer gluten-free meals, and I'm wondering if you know the answer to that, or any gluten-free options.
I happen to know the answer to that because my wife's actually gluten-free, and Linnea works on board. So yeah, they have the gluten-free bread is definitely part of the choices, and it's actually pretty amazing. The galley team and the rest of the waiters somehow very quickly work out who has what special dietary requests, and you know, we'll be sitting at a meal, and the waiter will come and say, you know, they can make that gluten-free for you. So yes, they can deal with all sorts of special diet requests.
Great, thank you. And someone has also asked about the charge for scuba diving, and I did see that it changed recently, so I have that info. The current rate is it's Australian $80 per dive. And because the currency rate of the ship is in AUD, the dives are priced in AUD. So the U.S. price depends on the exchange rate that day. So for today, for example, it would be 75 USD. And the number of dives varies based on the trip where you're going. And Tim, I don't know.
I mean, I can answer the question about the dives, number of dives, because I mean, really, any day we can dive, we do offer a dive to people. So it may be an option. They can either go for a dive or go ashore and visit the island. But really, if there's a chance to go diving, our dive masters are really keen to take every opportunity they can. Okay,
great. And a few people have been asking if you could send the replay link, and we will actually, for everyone who attended, so that you know, we will be sending an email with a link to the recorded version of this webinar, so you can watch it again or reference different parts of it. And I think that's the bulk of the questions coming in. So let's see if there's any more. I'll just take a second to check. Someone is asking, so people using their credit cards for incidentals will be charged in AUD, which usually means fees for U.S. travelers. Is that the case? Well, I'll say in my case, I make sure I have a credit card that has no international fees for all travel. But Tim, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, not really. It's not really something that I deal with, but I didn't see there were any problems on the last few voyages with the system. It seemed to work fine for all of our U.S. guests.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time today, and Tim, thank you so much for taking us through this, and we appreciate you joining us to learn more about the South Pacific.
Great. Well, look forward to seeing all of your guests out there on these voyages. Very exciting. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.